have asked me to do this video to help you decide whether it's worth upgrading from the iPhone 6s to the iPhone 7, and really how much is different, what's actually different between these two, and what improvements have been made. Well, I'm going to be summarizing all of those in this video, so let's get straight to it. So firstly, in terms of the size, there's actually no difference whatsoever. They are both exactly the same size. So if you're used to handling the iPhone 6 and 6s, this is going to be the same with the iPhone 7. The iPhone 7 is, however, just 5 grams lighter compared to the iPhone 6s. Nothing really in it. Now, design-wise, they're also quite similar. So there has been a slight update in terms of the design of the iPhone 7, and that's with the antenna bands. They now don't go around the back, they actually just go around the edges now, and the camera is also a little bit different, so it's actually a larger camera bump. Now personally, I don't know why Apple just didn't make the device a little bit thicker, and that way we could have had no camera bump and a larger battery. But that's Apple for you. So in terms of design, there's not much of a difference. The biggest difference you will see is if you go for one of the new colors. So there is a matte black, so this is just called black, and there's also a more of a glossy black, which they are calling the jet black. Now this does mean that the space gray version is no longer going to be available on the iPhone 7. That is just going to be on the iPhone 6s. So if that is a color that you like, then that's just something to bear in mind. Now, the new feature on the iPhone 7 is that it is IP67 water and dust resistant. So this is very, very good. And on the iPhone 6s, some people did test it underwater for a bit, and sometimes it did survive, but I wouldn't risk doing that. Now it is officially certified IP67, although Apple will not cover water damage under the warranty, so just bear that in mind. This is something that they had at the end of their trailer. It's my job to inform you of these things, so that's what I'm doing here. Just take note of that if you are going to be doing some crazy things with it, then Apple are not going to be covering that for the warranty. Now the display sizes are exactly the same, 4.7 inches on both. However, there are some improvements on the iPhone 7. It's actually got a wider color gamut, so you've got more colors, and it's also roughly about 25% brighter. So you do have some improvements on the display here. Both of these have 3D touch, so if you do press down harder on certain icons and things, you're going to be getting some more options. So this is nice to see that we've got that continued over from the iPhone 6s. A lot of people I know do use it. I personally don't use it too much. If you do, then let me know in the comment section below. Now the resolution is just the same though, so we've still got the same resolution, 1334 by 750. There's no improvement in here, so pixel density and everything is exactly the same. I would have liked to have seen an improvement personally up to 1080p, but this is not here. I know pixel density isn't a big deal for most people out there, but it looks like Apple might be saving this update for next year. Now, as with every year, we have some significant improvements for the internals. So now we have the Apple A10 Fusion chip compared to the A9 on the iPhone 6s, and it's also quad core this time compared to dual core last year. Now the quad core, there's actually 2 different cores, so you could call it 2 dual core processors. 2 are more powerful than the others, and they are not going to kick in unless you're using more intensive tasks. This is going to improve battery life, and overall in terms of performance, Apple are saying that the A10 is 40% faster compared to the A9, and for graphics it's 50% faster, so quite a significant improvement. The iPhone 6s is already a very, very fast phone, so these improvements on here are great. Apple actually demonstrated some usage of Lightroom, so Adobe Photoshop Lightroom on the phone, which is very, very impressive. And I've got no doubt that the iPhone 7 is going to be one of the fastest devices out there. The iPhone 6s is still a very fast phone, and because of the optimizations that Apple has, it is still going to last you, but the iPhone 7 is going to last you that much longer. Now in terms of storage, the iPhone 6s initially came with 16, 32 or 128GB options. Now the 16GB was a big no-no for me, and it was very, very annoying because you could barely get anything on there. Apple have finally upgraded that, so the iPhone 7 comes with a base model of 32GB, then it goes up to 128, and then finally 256. Now with the iPhone 6s, they are going to be discontinuing the 16GB model, which is once again great. So you have the 32 and 128GB options available now if you go to the Apple Store. But if you pick it up somewhere else, then you will still be able to get hold of some of the older 16GB models. Another thing to bear in mind is if you're after the jet black version of the iPhone 7, then you are going to have to go for either 128 or 256GB storage versions. The jet black is not going to be available at 32GB. Now let's talk about the camera improvements. So we do still have 12 megapixels, but the 6S has an f2.2 aperture and it does not have optical image stabilization. The iPhone 7 now comes with an f1.8 aperture as well as optical image stabilization. So previously we only had software stabilization, but it's great to see that we now have optical image stabilization. Previously this was only available on the Plus model, so that's definitely a nice improvement here. You also have now a quad LED flash. So this True Tone flash is supposed to be 50% brighter compared to the dual LED flash on the iPhone 6s. And generally speaking, because of the optical image stabilization and the wider aperture, low light images will be much better on the iPhone 7. If you want to see a detailed comparison, super SAF style, on the channel, then be sure to hit that thumbs up button to let me know, and make sure you have subscribed to see that first. Now, because of the new processor in the iPhone 7, the A10, you actually have a better image engine, and this is going to allow you to capture raw photos. So if you're somebody who likes to tweak your photos later on, that's definitely a nice touch, and you're also going to have wider colors on your images. So some nice improvements here on the iPhone 7 for the cameras. Now in terms of video, we've got the same resolutions here up to 4K, which is great, and the slow motion is also the same. The one big improvement that we have on the iPhone 7 is that you've got video optical image stabilization, so your videos are going to be much more stable compared to the iPhone 6s, similar to what you would have got from the iPhone 6s Plus. That's quite nice to see. And the front facing camera on the iPhone 7 also has an improvement. On the 6s you have 5 megapixels with an f2.2 aperture. Although the aperture has stayed the same, f2.2, you do have 7 megapixels now on the iPhone 7. This is something I personally wasn't expecting. I thought Apple were going to stick to 5 megapixels because many of the other competition still only have 5 megapixels. But Apple are really taking that selfie game strong, and they have upped the resolution. Another big improvement is for the video from the front facing camera. So you now have 1080p video. Finally you have 1080p. Apple previously has only had 720p, which is a real shame because these days people are vlogging a lot more and using the front facing camera a lot more, and still having 720p was definitely quite a downside for the iPhone 6s. This has now been improved with 1080p. You also have auto image stabilization. So this is software stabilization, but it's nice to have here on the iPhone 7. In terms of the operating systems, you have iOS 10 on both. What's great is that you are going to be getting updates on both. The iPhone 7 will get updates a little bit longer compared to the iPhone 6s. So if you're going to be keeping your phone for a few years, that's just something to bear in mind, that if you do go for the newer version, that is going to last you that little bit longer in terms of the updates. Now looking at the additional features, both of these do have Touch ID. It's Gen 2, so should work similarly, but the button is no longer pressable on the iPhone 7. This is a force sensitive button, similar to those trackpads that we see, and it's going to give you some taptic feedback, but it's not a physical button. So it'll be interesting to see how different these are in terms of day-to-day usage. It might take some time getting used to the iPhone 7. Now some key changes have come to audio. So firstly, with the iPhone 7 you have stereo speakers, so you have 2 speakers, one at the top and one at the bottom, and this is going to be twice as loud compared to the iPhone 6s. So if you do watch a lot of videos and listen to a lot of things from the speakers of your phone, then the iPhone 7, a big improvement here. Now in terms of the audio jack as well, this has now been removed. The headphone jack is no longer there. This is something we were expecting from the iPhone 7. So it's no longer there, but what it is good is that you get lightning earpods out of the box as well as a lightning converter. This is something I personally wasn't expecting. I thought Apple were going to slap on another charge for it, but it's actually included out of the box of the iPhone 7. With the iPhone 6s, you are just going to get your standard earpods with the 3.5mm connector. Now one thing to bear in mind is that with the iPhone 7, because you no longer have that 3.5mm headphone jack, then if you are charging your phone, for instance, then you are not going to be able to use those headphones if you have some wired headphones, and if that's something that you usually do. So that's just something to bear in mind. Yes, you can use the converter and use these, or if you're using wireless headphones, that's fine. And that's just something to keep in mind, that with the iPhone 7, if you are charging the device, then you're not going to be able to use wired headphones. Now moving on to the batteries, the iPhone 6s has a 1715 milliamp an hour battery. The iPhone 7, they've not actually specified the exact size of it. I'd expect it to be very similar because it's the same size device, but Apple have said that you can get up to 2 hours more usage on the iPhone 7. Real usage will vary from person to person, but because of the new, more efficient processor as well as the optimizations, the iPhone 7 will be giving you some better usage compared to the iPhone 6s. Now, it's not a huge deal, and I would have liked to have had a bigger battery on the iPhone 7, but Apple have just kept the size the same, so that's just something that we're gonna have to deal with. I wish they just had made it a little bit thicker and put in a bigger battery. Now, in terms of price, the iPhone 6s, because it's last year's model, you can actually expect a price drop. So right now, if you were to pick it up from the Apple Store, you're going to be paying roughly about £500 for the 32GB model, around $600 in the US. So not a bad deal, generally speaking, but not too great. You might be able to pick it up a little bit cheaper if you look for something, you know, pre-owned or refurbished or something. So if you do want to do that, but with the iPhone 7, it's going to be coming in at £600 in the UK, which is £60 more compared to what the base model was last year. It is, however, the same price as last year's release in the US, so $650. Obviously, for the larger models, and if you want to go for that jet black, then you are going to have to be paying that higher price. Now, in terms of availability, the iPhone 6s, you can pick it up right now. With the iPhone 7, it's going to be releasing on the 16th of September, so not too long to go, and that is the date that you want to be putting in your diaries. Now, which one should you go for, and is it worth upgrading? Well, if you have the iPhone 6s, my personal opinion is that you should wait till the next iPhone. That is going to be the 10th year anniversary, and I think this is the reason why Apple have not really made much of a drastic design change. I'm expecting more of a design change for the 10th anniversary of the iPhone next year. So if you're happy with your iPhone 6s and you're probably on a 2-year contract cycle anyway, I think it's worth just waiting out. Yes, you do have some good improvements. The display's improved, the camera's improved, the processor in terms of speed and everything, that's also improved, as well as the base storage model. So if you're on a 16GB model of the iPhone 6s, then the iPhone 7 might be something that you want to upgrade to. You could also potentially sell it off as well. So right now there's going to be lots of people looking for an iPhone 6s, so you could sell that off and use that money to go towards an iPhone 7. But generally speaking, if you are happy with your iPhone 6s, I would say stick to it. If, however, you want the latest Apple product, which I know a lot of you guys do want, then the iPhone 7, generally speaking, overall seems like a good package because of all of the new updates. So I would definitely recommend going for one of the new color options, because those will also hold value over time because they are the newer colors. So